The rejection letter arrived on a Thursday, printed on paper so thin it felt like an insult. Chen held it between her fingers in the dim light of the laundromat, where she'd been folding other people's clothes for $12.50 an hour, and felt something inside her crack just a little bit more. We regret to inform you that your application for the assistant manager position has been declined. While your work ethic is commendable, we have selected a candidate whose experience better aligns with our current needs. Maya folded the letter once, twice, 3 times, until it became a small square she could slip into her jacket pocket, where it would join the other rejections she'd collected over the past 6 months. 23 applications. 23 polite variations of not good enough. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional green that made skin look sallow and hope feel like a luxury she couldn't afford. Her daughter, Lily, sat cross-legged on the floor beside a mountain of towels, doing homework on a tablet they'd gotten from the school district's low-income program. She was 8 years old and already understood that quiet was necessary when Mama was working, that space was borrowed, that nothing lasted. The mathematics of their life were brutally simple. Income, $2,100 per month from the laundromat, plus whatever she could pick up doing delivery driving on weekends when Mrs. Rodriguez could watch Lily. Expenses, $950 for the studio apartment on the edge of Chinatown, where the walls were so thin you could hear neighbors breathing. For $100 for food, if they were careful, $200 for utilities that seemed to climb no matter how much they conserved, $85 for Lily's asthma medication that insurance covered only partially, $150 for the car payment on a Honda with 180,000 miles that refused to die, but also refused to run without constant expensive persuasion. That left roughly $315 per month for everything else. Clothes, school supplies, the occasional emergency, the accumulating debt that followed Maya like a shadow with teeth. She owed $23,000 on credit cards, the kind of debt that grew faster than she could pay it down, interest compounding monthly like a mathematical curse. Mama, Lily's voice was small, trained by experience not to demand attention, but to request it carefully. Can I ask you something? Maya set down the shirt she'd been folding and crouched beside her daughter. Always, baby. What is it? Lily held up her tablet, showing a form with blank spaces. We're supposed to write about what we want to be when we grow up. Everyone else already knows. I don't know what to put. The question landed like a weight. Maya looked at her daughter's face, at the uncertainty there, the learned caution of a child who'd already absorbed too many lessons about limitations. She thought about her own childhood, about her grandmother who'd immigrated from Hong Kong with nothing but determination and a recipe for almond cookies she'd sold door to door until she saved enough to rent a corner in someone else's kitchen. Her grandmother, Chen, had died when Maya was 12, but the memory of her remained sharp. A small woman with hands that never stopped moving, who spoke English with an accent that got thicker when she was tired or angry, who'd built something from nothing and lost it all when the building she'd finally managed to buy burned down 3 months before she could afford fire insurance. You could be anything you want, Lily. Anything you're willing to work for. The words fell hollow even as she said them, the kind of platitude adults offered children when the truth was too complicated and too cruel. But Lily nodded seriously, as though her mother had revealed some profound wisdom, and began typing on her tablet with the careful concentration she brought to everything. Maya stood and returned to folding, her hands moving through the familiar motions while her mind wandered to places it shouldn't go. What if she'd finished college instead of dropping out when she got pregnant? What if Lily's father had stayed instead of disappearing when the pregnancy test came back positive? What if she'd been born into different circumstances, with different advantages, with the kind of safety net that kept people from falling all the way down? But what ifs were useless currency, accepted nowhere, buying nothing. The mail arrived at the apartment the next morning, slipped through a slot in the door that sometimes caught envelopes and tore them. Maya gathered the pile without enthusiasm, already knowing what she'd find. Bill, advertisement for a credit card she couldn't afford, notice about a rent increase starting next month. And one envelope that didn't fit the pattern. The paper was heavy, expensive. The return address was embossed. Chen and Associates, Estate Attorneys, San Francisco, California. Maya turned it over in her hands, confused. She didn't know anyone who used estate attorneys. Didn't know anyone with estates, period. She opened it carefully, half expecting some kind of scam, another predatory offer disguised as opportunity. Dear Ms. Maya Chen, our firm has been attempting to locate you for the past 18 months regarding the estate of Chen Wei, deceased November 2009. As her sole surviving heir, you are entitled to claim certain properties that remained unclaimed due to incomplete probate proceedings. Specifically, you have inherited the commercial property located at 4247 Stockton Street, San Francisco, California. This property, formerly operating as the Golden Fortune Cookie Factory, has been vacant since 2012 and is currently in a state of significant disrepair. Due to accumulated property taxes and associated fees, the county has placed a lien on the property totaling $4,200. If this amount is not paid within 60 days, the property will be seized and auctioned to satisfy the debt. We understand this may come as a surprise. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss your options. Maya read the letter 3 times, each time certain she misunderstood something crucial. Her grandmother had owned a building? A factory? How was that possible? Chen Wei had died with nothing, or so Maya's mother had always said. The funeral had been small, cheap, followed by arguments about who would pay for what, and then silence as family members scattered back to their own struggling lives. Her mother, Linda, had moved to Phoenix after the funeral, chasing a boyfriend who became a husband who became an ex-husband, leaving Maya alone in Oakland to figure out adulthood at 19 with a newborn and no plan. They spoke maybe twice a year, conversations that felt more like obligations than connections. Maya pulled out her phone and dialed. The call rang 4 times before Linda answered, her voice sharp with suspicion that came from seeing Maya's name on the screen. What's wrong? Is Lily okay? Everything's fine. I need to ask you something about Grandma. Silence, then a sigh. Why are you bringing up ancient history? Did she own a building? A factory? What? No. Your grandmother died broke, Maya. She rented a tiny apartment and worked herself to death making cookies nobody wanted to buy. Why are you asking? Maya explained about the letter. As she talked, she could hear her mother's breathing change, getting faster, sharper. That's impossible, Linda said finally. I would have known. I was her daughter. They would have contacted me first. The letter says I'm her sole surviving heir. That means they couldn't find you, or what? Or she specifically named me. Another silence, this one loaded with old resentments Maya didn't fully understand. Her mother had never talked much about Chen Wei, and when she did, it was with a bitterness that suggested wounds that had never healed. If this is real, Linda said slowly, if she really left you something, then you need to understand it's probably worthless. A building in San Francisco that's been empty for over a decade, it's going to be condemned, falling apart, maybe contaminated with God knows what. The property taxes alone will bankrupt you. It says I owe $4,200. Linda laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. That's just what they're telling you up front. There'll be more. There's always more. My advice? Walk away. Let the county take it. Don't throw good money after bad, chasing some fantasy about your grandmother being anything other than what she was, stubborn, difficult, and ultimately unsuccessful. The conversation ended shortly after, leaving Maya with more questions than answers. She sat at the small table in the studio apartment, the letter spread before her, and did the math. $4,200 was an impossible amount. Her savings account held $340. She had maybe $600 available on one credit card before she'd be over the limit. Even if she could somehow gather the money, her mother was probably right. A vacant factory that had been empty for 12 years would be a disaster, a money pit, a burden she couldn't afford. The reasonable thing to do was exactly what Linda suggested. Walk away. Let go. Focus on keeping her head above water rather than chasing something that would probably drown her. But that night, after Lily was asleep, Maya sat in the dark and thought about her grandmother. Not the version her mother described, stubborn, difficult, unsuccessful, But the woman Maya remembered. Small, but fierce, always working, hands moving even when she was tired, teaching Maya to fold dough and measure ingredients with precision that demanded respect. Quality first, Chen used to say in her accented English. You make something good, people remember. You make something bad, they remember longer. Chen had been proud. Maya remembered that clearly. Proud in a way that sometimes felt like armor, like protection against a world that didn't value women who looked like her, spoke like her, worked like her. Maybe that pride had isolated her from her own daughter. Maybe it had kept her from asking for help when she needed it. But maybe it had also driven her to build something worth leaving behind. Maya pulled up Google Maps on her phone and typed in the address. 4247 Stockton Street. The satellite image showed a narrow building squeezed between two larger structures in what looked like an older commercial district. The roof appeared intact from above, but the image was several years old and resolution was poor. She switched to Street View, scrolling through photographs from 2019. The building's facade was painted a faded red, with Chinese characters Maya couldn't read above a metal security gate that was pulled down and covered in graffiti. The windows on the upper floors were dark, possibly broken. The structure looked tired, forgotten, exactly the kind of place her mother had warned about. But it was there, real, a thing her grandmother had owned, had worked in, had left behind. Maya knew what the reasonable choice was, but she also knew that reason hadn't gotten her very far. Reasonable had led to the laundromat, to rejection letters, to watching her daughter grow up in a studio apartment where dreams felt like luxuries and hope required budgeting. Maybe it was time to be unreasonable. The decision formed slowly over the next 3 days. Maya called the attorney's office and spoke with a paralegal who confirmed the details of the letter. Yes, the property was hers to claim. Yes, the lien amount was accurate as of today, though it would continue to accumulate interest if unpaid. Yes, she would need to come to San Francisco to complete the paperwork and take possession. I have to warn you, the paralegal said, her voice kind but professional. The property is in very poor condition. The last inspection report, from when the county was considering seizure, noted significant structural concerns, water damage, and possible code violations. You might want to visit before you commit to paying the lien. Can I do that? Visit before deciding. Of course. The building is legally yours already. You're just in default on the taxes. I can arrange for someone from our office to meet you there with keys. Maya made the appointment for Saturday, 2 days away. She told Mrs. Rodriguez she needed the day off from delivery driving, promised to make up the hours, tried not to think about the gas money the trip would cost. Friday night, she explained to Lily where they were going, framing it as an adventure rather than a desperate gamble. Lily, who had inherited her mother's ability to sense when adults were pretending things were better than they were, asked careful questions. Is this about great-grandma, the one in the pictures? Maya had one photograph of Chen, taken sometime in the 1990s. In it, her grandmother stood in front of a building Maya now recognized as the factory, wearing an apron dusted with flour, unsmiling but somehow present in a way that transcended the fading photograph. Yes, baby. She left us something, and we're going to see what it is. Is it good? Maya pulled Lily close, breathing in the scent of the cheap shampoo they bought in bulk. I don't know yet, but we're going to find out together. They left Oakland at dawn on Saturday, the Honda protesting but cooperating as they crossed the Bay Bridge into San Francisco. The city emerged from morning fog like a promise, all vertical lines and crowded energy, so different from the sprawl they'd left behind. Maya navigated through weekend traffic, following GPS instructions that took them into Chinatown, through streets so narrow it felt like the buildings were leaning in to listen. The neighborhood was waking up, shop owners rolling up security gates, restaurants setting out signs in Chinese and English, the air already carrying the smell of cooking oil and something sweet Maya couldn't identify. 4247 Stockton Street sat between a restaurant supply company and what appeared to be a residential building that had been converted into some kind of import business. The factory looked smaller in person than it had in satellite images, maybe 30 feet wide, 3 stories tall, pressed against its neighbors like it was trying not to take up too much space. The paralegal, a young woman named Jessica, who looked fresh out of law school, was already waiting. She held a large envelope and a ring of keys that looked older than she was. "Miss Chen, I'm Jessica Park. Thank you for coming all this way." They shook hands. Jessica glanced at Lily with the expression of someone who wasn't used to children being part of business transactions, then smiled awkwardly. "Before we go in, I should set some expectations. The interior hasn't been maintained in over a decade. There's likely significant damage. We recommend you don't let your daughter. She stays with me," Maya said firmly. "We're together." Jessica nodded, pulling out paperwork from her envelope. "I'll need you to sign a liability waiver. The county is concerned about potential hazards, structural instability, mold, possible vermin infestation." Maya signed without reading carefully, each line requiring her initials, feeling like another step into territory she didn't understand but couldn't back away from. The security gate screeched when Jessica unlocked it, the sound echoing off the buildings on either side. Behind it was a metal door painted the same faded red as the exterior. 3 locks, all old enough to stick. Jessica worked through them methodically while Maya and Lily waited, hand in hand, on the sidewalk. The door finally opened, releasing air that smelled of dust and something else. Not decay exactly, but absence, the particular scent of spaces where time had stopped moving. Jessica stepped inside first, fumbling for a light switch. After a moment, fluorescent fixtures flickered to life overhead, revealing a large, open room. Maya stepped across the threshold, pulling Lily with her, and stopped breathing. The space was bigger than it had looked from outside, maybe 40 feet deep, filled with equipment that belonged to another era. Long metal tables lined both sides, their surfaces dulled by years of disuse, but still sturdy-looking. Industrial mixers, larger than anything Maya had seen outside of commercial bakery supply catalogs, stood silent in the corners. Against the far wall, enormous ovens built into the structure itself, their metal doors hanging open like mouths waiting to be fed. Everything was covered in dust so thick it had formed a kind of carpet, muffling their footsteps as they moved deeper into the space. Lily's grip on her hand tightened. "Mama, this is where great-grandma worked?" "I think so, baby." Jessica consulted her phone, pulling up what looked like the inspection report. The main floor was the production facility. There's a second floor that was used for storage and a third floor that served as living quarters. The inspection noted water damage on the upper floors from a roof leak that's since been patched, poorly, and concern about the electrical system throughout. She looked up at Maya. "I have to be honest with you. Even if you pay the lien, bringing this building up to current safety codes would cost tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. The location is good, Chinatown is valuable real estate, but the structure itself is more liability than asset." Maya walked to one of the long tables, running her finger through the dust. Beneath it, the metal was clean, barely corroded. She opened drawers built into the table's base, finding them organized with a precision that made her throat tight. Measuring cups arranged by size. Molds shaped like fortune cookies, dozens of them, each one perfect. Rolling pins, spatulas, tools she couldn't name, but that clearly had specific purposes, all stored carefully, waiting. "She took care of things," Maya said quietly. Even when she left, she organized everything first, like she was planning to come back. Jessica's expression softened. "I'm sorry. I know this must be difficult, seeing your grandmother's work like this." "It's not difficult. It's just sad. She built all this, and then it just stopped." They explored the rest of the main floor. Maya found a small office in one corner, barely larger than a closet, containing a desk, a filing cabinet, and a calendar still turned to October 2012. The last day marked on the calendar was October 15th. Whatever had caused Chen to leave, it had happened without warning, or at least without enough warning to take her calendar off the wall. The filing cabinet was locked. Jessica didn't have a key for it, but the lock looked old, the kind that might yield to simple tools. Maya made a mental note and moved on. Stairs at the back of the main floor led up to the second level. Jessica went first, testing each step carefully. The wood creaked but held. Lily followed close behind Maya, her curiosity overcoming her earlier nervousness. The second floor was darker, with fewer windows. It had been used for storage, exactly as Jessica said. Boxes were stacked along the walls, most of them labeled in Chinese characters. Maya could read a little. Her grandmother had tried to teach her, but not enough to understand most of the labels. Ingredients, she guessed. Supplies. The stuff of running a business. Water damage was visible here, stains spreading across the ceiling in patterns that looked almost organic, like the building was slowly becoming part of the weather it was supposed to keep out. The smell was stronger too, mustier, suggesting mold that might be growing where they couldn't see it. I really don't recommend going to the third floor, Jessica said. The inspection report specifically warned against it. The structure may be compromised. But Maya was already moving toward the next set of stairs. If Chen Wei had lived on the third floor, if her grandmother's private space still existed up there, she needed to see it. Not because it was wise or safe, but because something pulled at her, a need to understand what her grandmother's life had been like in this building. The stairs were narrower here, steeper. Maya made Lily wait at the bottom, then climbed slowly, testing each step with her weight before committing. Jessica followed reluctantly, phone out, probably recording everything for liability purposes. The third floor was a single large room, maybe 20 by 30 feet, with sloped ceilings that followed the roof line. It had been an apartment, clearly. A kitchen area in one corner, compact but functional. A bathroom barely visible through a partially open door. A space that might have held a bed, another area with what looked like a small table and chairs. And everywhere, traces of Chen Wei. Maya moved through the space like she was walking through memory made physical. The kitchen still had dishes in a drying rack by the sink, as though her grandmother had washed them and meant to put them away, but never got the chance. The bathroom cabinet held toiletries, a jade comb, face cream in a jar whose label had faded to nothing. In what must have been the sleeping area, a narrow bed frame stood empty, but a trunk sat at its foot. Maya knelt beside it, hands shaking slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside were clothes, folded with the same precision Chen Wei had brought to everything. Below the clothes, wrapped in cloth, were papers. Maya pulled them out carefully, aware that Jessica was watching, but no longer caring about professional boundaries or legal formalities. Letters, written in Chinese, the characters beautiful and incomprehensible. Photographs, some she recognized, her mother as a child, Maya herself as a baby, and many she didn't. Business documents, ledgers with numbers recorded in columns, receipts bound together with rubber bands that had degraded to the point of uselessness. And at the very bottom, a book. Not a notebook, but a small bound volume with a red cover. Maya opened it carefully. The first page was in English, the handwriting shaky but readable. For my granddaughter Maya, who has my hands and maybe my stubbornness. If you're reading this, I am gone. This is good. I'm tired. But before I go, I want you to know some things. Maya's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing herself to focus on the words. I came to this country with nothing. Built this factory with my hands and money. I saved washing dishes and cleaning houses. People said a Chinese woman alone could not succeed in business. I proved them wrong. Not because I was special, because I refused to accept their limits. Your mother does not understand this. She wanted me to be softer, easier, American in ways I could not be. We fought. She left. I do not blame her, but I am still sad. This building, this factory, it is yours now. Maybe you sell it. Maybe you make it something new. That is not important. What matters is you know you come from people who build things, who survive, who refuse to disappear. The world will tell you to be small, quiet, grateful for scraps. Do not listen. You have my blood. We are not made for small lives. There is more here than you can see. Look carefully. Trust your hands. They know. The letter ended there, no signature, just a date. October 10th, 2012. 5 days before the calendar downstairs stopped. Chen Wei had known she was dying, or at least suspected. She'd had time to write this letter, to hide it where maybe someone would find it, but not time to do much more. Or maybe she'd done more than Maya understood yet. Lily called from the bottom of the stairs, her voice worried. "Mama? Are you okay?" Maya wiped her eyes, carefully folded the letter, and descended to where her daughter waited. "I'm okay, baby. Better than okay." Jessica was checking her watch. "Miss Chen, I hate to rush you, but I have another appointment at 11. Do you need more time to look around?" "No, I've seen enough." "So, you'll be declining the inheritance?" "The county can handle the auction process, and I'm paying the lien." Jessica blinked. "I'm sorry, the $4,200. How do I pay it?" "Ms. Chun, respectfully, you've only been in the building for 40 minutes. You haven't had it professionally inspected, haven't assessed the full scope of repairs needed, haven't even seen all 3 floors properly. I really think you should take more time to consider." "I don't need more time. This was my grandmother's. She built it from nothing, and she left it to me for a reason. I'm not letting the county auction it off to some developer who'll tear it down to put up condos." Maya's voice was firm, surprising her with its certainty. Lily looked up at her mother with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. Pride maybe, or worry, or both. Jessica closed her folder. "Okay, if you're certain. The payment needs to be certified check or money order. You have 60 days from the date of the letter, which gives you another 42 days. Once payment is received, we'll process the final transfer of title, and you'll receive the deed. What happens if I can't get the money together in time? Then the property goes to auction, and you forfeit all rights to it. 42 days to find $4,200. Maya's bank account held $340. Even if she picked up every possible extra hour at the laundromat, even if she drove deliveries 16 hours a day on weekends, even if she sold everything she owned that had any value, she wouldn't make it. But she'd figure something out. She always did. They locked the building back up, Jessica giving final warnings about liability and structural concerns that Maya barely heard. The drive back to Oakland passed in a blur, Lily chattering about the factory, about great-grandma, about all the cookies that must have been made in those big ovens. "Mama, can we make cookies there? Like great-grandma did?" "Maybe, baby. Someday. When I figure out how to pay for it." Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked with the devastating directness of children, "Are we poor?" Maya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "We're figuring things out. Madison at school says her mom says we're poor because you couldn't afford the field trip and I had to use the school's lunch money, and Madison's mom should mind her own business." The sharpness in her voice made Lily flinch. Maya forced herself to breathe, to soften. "Baby, we have enough. We have each other. We have a place to live. We have what we need. Money is tight sometimes, but that's temporary. We're working on it. By getting great-grandma's factory. Yes, by getting the factory and by doing whatever else I need to do." That night, after Lily was asleep, Maya sat with her laptop and searched for loans, for programs, for any possible way to gather $4,200 in 42 days. Every path led to the same conclusion. She'd need credit she didn't have, collateral she didn't own, or income she couldn't prove. She thought about calling her mother, asking for help. But Linda had made her position clear, and besides, if she'd had money to lend, she wouldn't be living in a rundown apartment complex in Phoenix, working at a call center for $15 an hour. Maya opened a new browser tab and typed Chunwei Golden Fortune Cookie Factory into Google, curious if any trace of her grandmother's business existed online. The results were sparse. A few mentions in historical directories of Chinatown businesses. One review from 2011 on a neighborhood food blog. Best fortune cookies in the city, made fresh daily. The messages inside actually feel meaningful, not just generic. And one newspaper article from the San Francisco Chronicle, dated March 2003. Local baker credits fortune cookies for lucky business success. Maya clicked through to the archived article. It was short, part of a series about small Chinatown businesses. Chen Wei, 68, has been making fortune cookies at her Stockton Street factory for 20 years. But Wei's cookies are different from the mass-produced versions found in restaurants across the country. Each batch is small, each cookie carefully crafted, and most intriguingly, each fortune is handwritten. "I write what people need to hear, Wei explains in careful English. Not what they want, what they need. Big difference. Wei's customers, a loyal group who sometimes drive from across the Bay Area specifically for her cookies, swear the fortunes are uncannily accurate. One customer claimed a fortune cookie from Wei's factory warned her about a business partner's dishonesty days before the fraud was discovered. Another says a message encouraged her to reconcile with her daughter after years of estrangement. Wei dismisses talk of supernatural abilities with a laugh. I just pay attention. People tell me things. I listen. Then I write what I hear them not saying. When asked if she'll ever expand the business, Wei shakes her head firmly. Quality first. You make something good, people remember. You make too much, quality suffers. Better to stay small and stay good. Maya read the article 3 times, seeing her grandmother in these words, hearing her voice in the quotes. Handwritten fortunes. Each message personal, specific, meaningful. There is more here than you can see. Look carefully. Trust your hands. They know. Chen Wei's letter echoed in her mind. Look carefully. What was she supposed to look for? Sleep didn't come easily. Maya lay in the dark, listening to Lily's steady breathing, her mind churning through possibilities and impossibilities. By 3 a.m., she'd made a decision that felt equal parts determination and desperation. She would return to the factory alone, spend real time there, search every corner until she understood what her grandmother had meant. If there was something hidden, something valuable, something that could help her pay the lien and maybe start building something better than the life she'd been struggling through, she would find it. Monday morning arrived with the particular cruelty of obligations that couldn't be postponed. Maya dropped Lily at school, drove to the laundromat, and went through the motions of her shift while her mind remained in San Francisco, walking through rooms filled with dust and memory. Her supervisor, a perpetually exhausted woman named Denise who managed the laundromat like it was a military operation, noticed Maya's distraction by the 3rd folding error. You planning to be present today, or should I just dock your pay for daydreaming? Sorry, I'm here. It won't happen again. But it did happen again, and by lunch break, Denise pulled Maya into the cramped office that smelled of dryer sheets and disappointment. Look, I know you're going through something. Everyone's always going through something, but I can't have you messing up orders. Mrs. Patterson specifically asked for her towels folded in thirds, and you gave her halves. She's threatening to switch to the place on Telegraph. I understand. I'll be more careful. Denise sighed, her expression softening just slightly. You're my best workers, Maya. Don't make me regret keeping you on. Whatever's got you distracted, deal with it outside my business hours. Maya nodded, swallowed the responses that wanted to escape, that she was always trying, that being present when your mind was calculating impossible mathematics and your future hung on decisions you didn't know how to make was harder than Denise seemed to understand. She made it through the rest of the shift without errors, picked up Lily, made dinner from ingredients that required creativity to transform into something resembling nutrition, and waited until her daughter was asleep before pulling out her phone. The search terms she used were specific: fortune cookie factory hidden valuables, Chinese immigrant hidden savings, Chinatown, San Francisco treasure. Most results were tourist articles about the neighborhood's history or conspiracy theories about underground tunnels. Nothing useful. She tried different searches. Chen Wei fortune cookies, Golden Fortune cookie factory closure, Stockton Street businesses, 2012. This produced slightly better results. A few mentions of the factory's closure, one forum post from 2013, where someone asked if anyone knew what happened to that woman who made the weird fortunes, but no answers. Maya leaned back against the wall of the studio apartment, feeling the weight of the day settle into her bones. What was she doing? Chasing fairy tales? Her grandmother had been a baker, not a treasure hunter. The factory was exactly what it appeared to be: a failed business in a building that needed more money than Maya would ever have to fix it. But then she thought about the letter. There is more here than you can see. Look carefully. Trust your hands. Chen Wei hadn't been given to poetry or metaphor. Everything Maya remembered about her grandmother was practical, direct, focused on tangible results. If she'd written those words, she'd meant them literally. Tuesday passed in a haze of laundry and worry. Wednesday brought a text from Jessica Park, the paralegal, just checking in. Have you made a decision about the property? The clock is ticking. Maya typed back, I'm paying the lien. Just need some time to get the funds together. The response came quickly. Understood. Let me know if you need any clarification on the process. Thursday afternoon, Maya's shift ended early when the laundromat's largest dryer broke down and Denise sent everyone home until repairs could be made. It was 2 p.m. and Lily wouldn't be out of school for another hour. Maya sat in her car in the parking lot, staring at her phone, and made a decision that felt reckless and necessary in equal measure. She called Mrs. Rodriguez. Maya, is everything okay? I need a huge favor. Actually, several huge favors, and I know I have no right to ask, but I'm asking anyway. Mrs. Rodriguez listened as Maya explained the factory, the inheritance, the need to search the building properly, alone, without Lily present in case there were hazards. She needed someone to watch Lily overnight, maybe 2 nights, while she drove to San Francisco and did what needed to be done. This weekend, Maya said, Friday night through Sunday morning. I'll pay you. I'll make it up to you. Stop. You'll pay me nothing. That child is like my granddaughter. Of course, she can stay with me. But Maya, are you sure about this? Going to San Francisco alone. Searching an abandoned building. I'm not sure about anything anymore, Mrs. Rodriguez. But I have to try. Then you try. Lily will be safe with me. You do what you need to do. Friday evening, Maya packed a backpack with supplies that felt inadequate for the task ahead. Flashlights, batteries, a crowbar she'd borrowed from the laundromat's maintenance closet, work gloves, a first aid kit, water, protein bars, a blanket in case she needed to stay overnight in the building. She kissed Lily goodbye at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, holding her daughter tight while trying not to telegraph the fear that lived just beneath her determination. Be good for Mrs. Rodriguez, okay? I'll be back Sunday morning. Are you going to the factory? To great-grandma's place. Yes, baby. Are you going to find treasure? The question, asked with such innocent hope, made Maya's throat tighten. I'm going to find answers. That's a different kind of treasure. The drive to San Francisco and Friday evening traffic was brutal. 2 hours that stretched to 3 as brake lights multiplied and patience evaporated. Maya used the time to think about what she knew and what she didn't. Chen had closed the factory in October 2012. She died in November 2009. That 3-year gap meant someone else must have kept the business running after her death, or the calendar was wrong, or Maya was missing something fundamental about the timeline. She made a mental note to examine the office more carefully, look for financial records, anything that would explain what happened in those final years. The city appeared through the windshield like a promise or a threat, depending on how the light hit it. Maya parked on a side street 2 blocks from Stockton, not trusting the Honda's ancient alarm system to protect it directly in front of the factory. She shouldered her backpack and walked through Chinatown as evening settled into night. The neighborhood transformed after dark. The tourist crowds thinned, replaced by residents who moved with purpose, who belonged to these streets in ways visitors never would. Restaurants lit up, their windows steaming with cooking heat. Grocery stores displayed produce under harsh fluorescent lights. Old men gathered on corners, speaking languages Maya's ear recognized but couldn't translate. She felt like an intruder and a homecoming in the same breath. The factory was dark, wedged between its neighbors like something trying not to be noticed. Maya fumbled with the keys Jessica had given her, the same 3 locks resisting as they had before. When the door finally opened, she slipped inside quickly and closed it behind her, suddenly aware of how visible she was, how questionable this must look. A woman breaking into an abandoned building after dark. Except she wasn't breaking in. This was hers. Legally, officially hers, even if she hadn't paid the lien yet. The thought steadied her. She flipped the light switches, half expecting them not to work, but the fluorescents flickered to life just as they had on Saturday. Someone was still paying the electric bill, which meant the building wasn't as abandoned as it appeared. Another mystery to unravel. Maya set her backpack on one of the long metal tables and pulled out a flashlight, even though the overhead lights worked. She wanted backup, wanted to be prepared for darkness if it came. The main floor felt different at night, the shadows deeper, the equipment hulking and vaguely menacing in ways they hadn't been during daylight. Maya walked the perimeter slowly, running her hands along walls, opening every drawer and cabinet, looking for anything that seemed out of place or deliberately hidden. She found supplies, measuring cups, molds, spatulas, all the tools of cookie production, organized with Chen Wei's characteristic precision. She found ingredients that had long since expired, flour gone hard, sugar crystallized, spices that had lost their potency years ago. She found business cards from suppliers, yellowed with age, and a stack of order forms dated 2011. But nothing that explained Chen Wei's cryptic message. Nothing valuable, nothing hidden, nothing that would help Maya pay the lien. The office yielded more. Maya used a crowbar to force open the locked filing cabinet, the old mechanism giving way with a shriek of protesting metal that made her freeze, heart pounding, certain someone would come investigate the noise. No one did. Inside the cabinet were files, dozens of them, organized by year. Maya pulled them out and spread them on the desk. Financial records going back to 1993 when the factory first opened. Tax returns, business licenses, health inspection reports, employment records showing Chen Wei had occasionally hired part-time help, usually students from the neighborhood, paying them cash under the table. Maya went through the files methodically, looking for patterns, for anything unusual. The business had been modestly profitable in its early years, enough to support one person living frugally. But starting around 2005, the revenue decreased steadily. By 2010, the factory was barely breaking even. And then, in 2011, something changed. The revenue doubled, then tripled. Orders came in from across the city, from restaurants and specialty shops, from corporate clients wanting custom fortunes for events. The numbers didn't make sense given what Maya understood about the business. How had Chen Wei, working alone, increased production enough to justify this kind of income? She kept searching, pulling out bank statements, and there, deposits that didn't match the pattern. Large amounts, $15,000 here, $22,000 there, deposited irregularly, but frequently enough to transform the business's financial picture. Maya sat back in the creaky office chair, her mind racing. Where had this money come from? The deposits weren't labeled, offered no explanation. They just appeared, like Chen Wei had found some secondary income source she'd never documented properly, or like she'd been converting something into cash. There is more here than you can see. Look carefully. Trust your hands. Maya stood abruptly, the chair rolling backward and hitting the wall. She'd been looking for the wrong thing. Not hidden treasure in some storybook sense, but evidence of what Chen Wei had been doing in those final years, what had generated this mysterious income. She climbed to the second floor, moving more confidently now, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The storage area was exactly as she remembered, boxes stacked against walls, water damage spreading across the ceiling like a map of decay. Maya started opening boxes. The first contained fortune cookie molds, hundreds of them, each one identical. The second held packaging materials, plastic wrap, ribbons, boxes labeled with the factory's name and logo. The third contained more ingredients, these ones still sealed, preserved by packaging that had kept out moisture and pests. She worked her way through the stacks systematically, finding nothing unusual until she reached the boxes pushed furthest into the corner, half hidden behind larger containers. These boxes were different, heavier, sealed with tape that had yellowed but held firm. Maya used the crowbar to split the tape, opening the first box with hands that trembled slightly. Inside were papers, not business documents, but something else entirely. Certificates printed on heavy stock, decorative borders surrounding Chinese and English text. Maya pulled one out and held it under a flashlight. Republic of China Liberty Bond. Face value, $500. Issued 1937. She stared at the certificate, her brain struggling to process what she was seeing. Liberty bonds? From 1937? That was before the Communist Revolution, before the Republic of China government fled to Taiwan. These bonds had been issued by a government that no longer controlled mainland China, which meant Maya's hand shook as she pulled out more certificates. There were dozens in this box alone. She opened the second box. More bonds, these ones dated 1942. The third box held different certificates, something called Gold Yuan bond from 1948. She sat on the dusty floor, surrounded by paper, and tried to calculate. If each certificate represented $500, and there were easily 100 certificates in each box, and there were 3 boxes, that was $150,000 in face value. Maybe more. But the bonds were from a defunct government. They might be historically interesting, might be worth something to collectors, but surely not their face value. Surely not enough to explain the deposits Chen had been making. Maya pulled out her phone, grateful she'd switched to a plan with unlimited data, even though it stretched her budget. She searched, Republic of China Liberty Bonds Value 2024. The results made her vision swim. Apparently, there was an active market for these bonds. The Republic of China government, now based in Taiwan, had periodically made efforts to honor some of these old debts, though the legal situation was complex and ongoing. But more importantly, collectors valued them, particularly bonds in good condition from the pre-1949 period. Individual certificates could sell for anywhere from $200 to $2,000, depending on date, condition, and rarity. Some of the rarer issues commanded prices in the tens of thousands. Maya looked at the boxes surrounding her. If even a conservative estimate applied, if these certificates averaged $500 each in collector value, and there were 300 of them, that was $150,000. Not in theoretical face value, but in actual, real world, could pay her debts and change her life money. Her hand was shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. She set it down, pressed her palms against the floor, tried to breathe. This was what Chen had meant. This was the more that Maya needed to look for. Her grandmother had somehow acquired these bonds, had kept them hidden for decades, had started selling them in her final years to generate the mysterious deposits Maya had found in the bank records. But where had they come from? How had Chen gotten them? Maya's flashlight beam caught something else in the third box, tucked beneath the certificates. A notebook, smaller than the bound volume she'd found in Chen bedroom, but similar in style. She pulled it out carefully. The writing was in Chinese, but the dates were in Western numerals, and the first entry was labeled 1938. Maya couldn't read the text, but she recognized her grandmother's handwriting, younger and more certain than the shaky English of the letter she'd left behind. She would need someone to translate this, but she could guess at the story. Chen family, fleeing war or persecution or poverty, had invested in government bonds, believing in a China that would honor its debts. Then revolution came, and those bonds became worthless paper, except to those who refused to accept their worthlessness. Chen had carried them to America, kept them through decades of struggle, and finally, when she was old and tired, had started converting them to cash, selling to collectors who valued history even when governments didn't. The factory hadn't been her real legacy. This paper, this preserved piece of a lost China, this was what she'd been protecting. And now it was Maya's. She sat in the darkness of the storage room for a long time, surrounded by boxes that represented not just money but survival, the kind of stubborn refusal to accept defeat that Chen had embodied her entire life. Finally, Maya stood, her back protesting from sitting on the hard floor, her mind already calculating. She needed to verify the certificate's authenticity, find a reputable dealer, understand the legal implications of selling them. She needed to be careful, methodical, smart about this. But first, she needed to get them somewhere safe. Maya spent the next 2 hours carefully repacking the certificates, counting as she went. 347 certificates in total, dates ranging from 1937 to 1948, face values from $500 to $5,000. If her research was accurate, if the market held, if she could find the right buyers, she was looking at potentially $200,000 or more. The number felt impossible, dangerous, like something that would evaporate if she examined it too closely. She carried the boxes down to the main floor one at a time, her muscles straining with the weight. The Honda's trunk wouldn't fit all 3 boxes, so she made a decision that felt risky but necessary. She would take 2 boxes tonight, hide them at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment. The older woman had a storage unit in the building's basement that no one ever checked, and come back for the 3rd box tomorrow. Before she left, Maya climbed to the 3rd floor one more time, standing in the space where Chen Wei had lived, worked, kept her secrets. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for saving these. Thank you for trusting I would find them." The room offered no response except the settling sounds of old buildings, but Maya felt something shift anyway. Not supernatural, not mystical, just a sense of connection across time, granddaughter to grandmother, 2 women trying to survive in a world that made survival harder than it needed to be. She locked the factory carefully and loaded the 2 boxes into her trunk, covering them with the blanket she'd brought and an old tarp for good measure. The drive back to Oakland took less time than the trip out, traffic thinned by the late hour. She reached Mrs. Rodriguez's building at 1:47 a.m. The older woman opened her door in a bathrobe, hair in curlers, clearly woken by Maya's knock. "Did you find it?" "Your answers." "I found more than answers." "Mrs. Rodriguez, I need to ask another impossible favor." "This is becoming a habit," Mrs. Rodriguez said, but she was smiling. "Come in. Tell me." They sat in the kitchen while Maya explained, carefully editing the details to avoid sounding insane, that she'd found documents belonging to her grandmother, valuable papers that needed to be stored somewhere safe while she figured out what to do with them. "How valuable are we talking?" Maya hesitated, then decided Mrs. Rodriguez deserved honesty. "Maybe $200,000. The older woman's eyes widened. "Madre de Dios. Maya, if you have something that valuable, you can't just store it in my basement. You need a bank, a safety deposit box, insurance." "I know, but it's Saturday today, and banks don't open until Monday. I just need somewhere safe for 48 hours. Mrs. Rodriguez studied her for a long moment. "You're sure these papers are legal? You're not involved in something that will bring trouble?" "They belong to my grandmother. They're mine legally. I just need to sell them carefully, properly, to the right buyers." "Okay, we'll put them in my storage unit. But Monday, you get a safety deposit box. And Maya, you should talk to a lawyer, someone who knows about this kind of thing. Don't try to handle this alone." "I won't. I promise." They moved the boxes together, down 3 flights of stairs to the basement, into a storage unit filled with Mrs. Rodriguez's accumulated possessions. They buried the boxes beneath old linens and holiday decorations, hiding them in plain sight. Back in Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, Maya finally allowed herself to feel the exhaustion that had been building all night. She accepted the offer to sleep on the couch, too tired to drive home, too wired to actually sleep. Lily appeared in the doorway at 6 a.m., rubbing her eyes. "Mama, you're back." Maya pulled her daughter into her arms, breathing in the scent of Mrs. Rodriguez's lavender soap, feeling the solid weight of Lily's small body. "I'm back, baby. And I have good news. Really good news." "Did you find treasure?" "Yes, exactly that." Saturday passed in a blur of research and planning. Maya dropped Lily at a friend's house for a playdate, a rare treat she justified because she needed time to think, and spent 6 hours on her laptop, learning everything she could about Republic of China bonds. The market was real, but complex. There were dealers who specialized in this kind of historical financial document, auction houses that handled estate sales, private collectors who paid premium prices for rare certificates. There were also scammers who would offer pennies on the dollar, counting on sellers' ignorance. Maya found a dealer in San Francisco, a man named Robert Chen, no relation, as far as she knew, who had good reviews and specialized in Chinese historical documents. His website showed examples of bonds he'd previously sold, with prices that confirmed her research. He offered free authentication services and charged a 15% commission on sales. She called the number listed, expecting voicemail on a Saturday, but he answered on the 3rd ring. "Chen Antiquities, Robert speaking." Maya explained her situation carefully, leaving out specific numbers, but describing the general contents of what she'd found. Robert's voice sharpened with interest. "Republic of China Liberty bonds from the 30s and 40s? In good condition? That's quite a find." Most of those were destroyed during the revolution or lost over the years. If they're authentic and well-preserved, yes, there's definitely a market. How would I verify authenticity? Bring them to my shop. I can examine them, provide documentation. If they check out, I can help you sell them either privately or through auction, depending on what makes sense. But I'll be honest with you, Ms. Chen, this is a slow market. It might take months to find the right buyers, and you'll need patience. What if I need money faster than that? A pause. I could make an offer for the collection outright, but it would be significantly less than what you'd get selling them individually. Probably 40 to 50% of their retail value. That's the cost of immediate liquidity. 40 to 50% of $200,000 was still $80,000 to $100,000. More money than Maya had ever imagined having. Enough to pay the lien, fix the building, maybe even start the business again. But also potentially giving away more than half the value of her inheritance because she was desperate and impatient. Let me think about it, Maya said. Can I bring them in for authentication first, before deciding how to proceed? Of course. My shop is open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Bring whatever you're comfortable bringing. I'll take a look. Maya thanked him and hung up, her mind already moving to the next problem. She needed to go back to the factory, get the third box, search the rest of the building to make sure she hadn't missed anything else. She needed to understand what Chen Wei had been planning, how she'd intended for Maya to find all this. Sunday morning, she dropped Lily at Mrs. Rodriguez's again. The older woman was becoming a saint, and Maya was accumulating a debt of gratitude she couldn't quantify, and drove back to San Francisco. The factory in daylight looked less menacing, just tired and forgotten, waiting for someone to remember it mattered. Maya let herself in and stood in the main floor, seeing it differently now. This wasn't a failed business. It was a front, a cover, a way for Chen Wei to maintain the appearance of normal life while she slowly converted her family's historical assets into survival money. Maya climbed to the second floor and retrieved the third box of certificates, then continued to the third floor to search Chen Wei's living quarters more thoroughly. She went through the trunk completely this time, finding more letters written in Chinese, more photographs of people Maya didn't recognize. She found a small wooden box containing jewelry, jade pieces, nothing obviously expensive but beautiful in its simplicity. She found a notebook from the bedroom, the one with Chen Wei's letter to her, and read it again. There is more here than you can see. Look carefully. Trust your hands. They know. Trust your hands. Maya looked at her own hands, recognizing them in a way she hadn't before. These were Chen Wei's hands, passed down through genetics and maybe something more. Hands that knew how to work, how to build, how to find value in things others dismissed. She moved to the kitchen area, opening cabinets she'd only glanced at before. Most contained dishes, cookware, nothing unusual. But one cabinet, the one above the small refrigerator, was padlocked. Maya used the crowbar to break the lock, feeling only slightly guilty about the property damage. Inside the cabinet was another box, smaller than the ones containing certificates, but heavy. She lifted it down carefully and opened it. Gold coins. Not a huge number, maybe 30 or 40 of them, but real gold, Chinese coins dated to the early 1900s. Maya pulled one out, feeling its weight, seeing the characters stamped into the metal. Her phone search confirmed what she suspected. Chinese gold coins from this period were valuable to collectors. Depending on rarity and condition, they could sell for anywhere from $500 to $5,000 each. She was looking at another $30,000 to $50,000 conservatively. Maya sat on the floor of Chen Wei's kitchen, surrounded by treasure her grandmother had hidden, and felt tears start to fall. Not sad tears, not happy tears exactly, but something in between. Relief maybe, or grief for all the years Chen Wei had lived with this wealth and never used it to make her own life easier. Or maybe just the overwhelming emotion of realizing that her grandmother had thought about her, had planned for her, had left her a way out of the trap that poverty created. She found 2 more hidden items before she left that day. The first was in the office downstairs, taped to the bottom of a desk drawer, an envelope containing $8,000 in cash, old bills but still legal tender. The second was in the main production area, inside one of the large industrial ovens that hadn't been used in years. Another notebook, this one filled with recipes. Not for fortune cookies, but for the messages that went inside them. Maya flipped through pages of Chen Wei's handwriting, reading the fortunes her grandmother had created. Your strength comes from accepting what you cannot change and changing what you cannot accept. The path forward is rarely straight, but every detour teaches something the direct route would miss. You carry your ancestors' courage, whether you feel brave or not. What seems like an ending is often just an intermission. Page after page of wisdom, observation, hope disguised as fortune-telling. Maya understood now why people had sworn the fortunes were meaningful. Chen Wei hadn't been guessing about people's lives. She'd been paying attention, listening, and reflecting back what she heard. The last entry in the notebook was dated October 12, 2012. For my granddaughter, if she finds this, you are worth more than you believe. The world will try to convince you otherwise. Do not listen. Build something good. Make them remember. Maya closed the notebook, added it to the growing collection of items she was taking with her, and made one final sweep of the building. She found nothing else of monetary value, but she found something that mattered almost as much, evidence that Chen Wei had been happy here. A photograph tucked into a mirror frame showing her grandmother smiling, truly smiling, standing in this factory surrounded by fresh cookies cooling on racks. A calendar from 2008 with notations about orders filled, customers satisfied, good days marked with simple stars. Chen Wei had built a life here, had created something meaningful even if it never made her wealthy, had survived in a country that wasn't always welcoming to women who looked like her, spoke like her, worked like her. And she'd saved enough treasure to give her granddaughter a chance at something better. Maya locked the factory for what she hoped would be the last time as an uncertain owner. If everything went according to plan, she'd be back soon with the money to pay the lien, with plans for what to do with the building, with Lily by her side to help build whatever came next. The drive back to Oakland felt different. The traffic was the same, the Honda still protested every incline, but Maya felt lighter. Not because her problems were solved, she still had to authenticate the certificates, sell them, navigate the legal and financial complexities of sudden wealth, but because she finally had options. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the future looked like something other than an endless repetition of struggle. Mrs. Rodriguez met her at the door when she returned to pick up Lily. You found more. I found enough. More than enough. Gracias a Dios. That child has been worried about you all day, though she tried to hide it. She's tough, like her mama. Like her great-grandmother, Maya corrected. We're all just borrowing Chen Wei's strength. Monday morning, Maya called in sick to the laundromat, the first sick day she'd taken in 18 months. Denise sounded suspicious, but didn't push. Maya spent the morning on the phone with Robert Chen, arranging to bring the certificates in for authentication that afternoon. She selected 20 certificates from the collection, choosing a range of dates and denominations, enough to verify authenticity without exposing the entire cache. She put them in a folder, put the folder in her backpack, and drove to San Francisco feeling like she was carrying something explosive. Robert Chen's shop was in a converted storefront on Clement Street, the kind of place that looked unimpressive from outside, but proved to be full of treasures once you entered. Glass cases held jade carvings, vintage photographs, antique scrolls. The walls displayed framed certificates and currency from various periods of Chinese history. Robert himself was in his 60s, wearing reading glasses on a chain and the kind of cardigan that suggested he'd been at this work for decades. He looked up when Maya entered, his expression shifting from neutral to interested as she approached the counter. Miss Chen, you brought items for me to examine. Maya pulled out the folder, her hands steadier than she expected. 20 certificates. Republic of China Liberty bonds, dated 1937 to 1948. She spread them on the counter, watching Robert's face as he picked up the first one, holding it to the light, examining it with the care of someone who knew exactly what to look for. May I use my loupe? Of course. He pulled out a jeweler's loupe and examined the certificate in detail. The paper quality, the printing, the seals, the signatures. Then he did the same with the second certificate and the third. After examining 10 of them, he looked up at Maya with an expression that mixed professional appreciation with barely concealed excitement. These are authentic, mid-20th century printing, correct paper stock, legitimate seals. The condition is remarkable. They've been stored well. Where did you say you found these? My grandmother's estate. They've been in her possession since the 1940s, I think. Your grandmother was wise to preserve them. The market for these has grown significantly in recent years. He gestured to the certificates spread on his counter. Based on what I'm seeing here, assuming the rest of your collection is similar quality, you're looking at substantial value. How substantial? Robert pulled out a calculator and a reference book, making notes as he went through each certificate. After 10 minutes, he looked up. Conservative estimate. If all 347 certificates are authentic and in this condition, you're looking at $275,000 to $325,000 in total value. That's retail, selling individually to collectors over time. I could sell them for you on consignment, taking my commission, and we'd likely achieve something in that range over the course of a year, maybe 18 months. Maya's vision swam. $275,000 to $325,000. She'd been hoping for $150,000, maybe $200,000 if she was lucky. But this, or Robert continued, if you need liquidity more quickly, I can make you an offer for the collection. I have clients who would be interested in a cash this large. I could offer you $175,000, paid within a week of verification of the full collection. $175,000 immediately versus $300,000 over a year or more. The choice should have been obvious. Wait, get the full value, be patient. But Maya thought about the lien, about the factory, about Lily wearing hand-me-down clothes and qualifying for free lunch, and living in a studio apartment where the walls were too thin and the future too uncertain. I need to think about it. Can I leave these here for a couple days while I decide? Of course. I'll write you a receipt, and they'll be secured in my vault. Take your time, Miss Chen. This is a significant decision. Maya left the shop feeling untethered, like the ground beneath her feet had become uncertain. She walked through the neighborhood without destination, trying to process what she'd just learned. $175,000. More money than she'd earned in 6 years at the laundromat. Enough to pay the lien, fix up the factory, maybe even start over, build something new. Or $300,000 if she could wait. If she could survive another year or more of struggle, scrimp and save, and hope nothing broke, hope Lily didn't need anything expensive, hope the Honda didn't die and the apartment didn't become unaffordable and life didn't throw any of the 1,000 curveballs it specialized in throwing at people who couldn't afford to miss them. Her phone rang. Mrs. Rodriguez. Maya, there's a man here asking about you. Says he's from the county assessor's office in San Francisco. He wants to talk about the property on Stockton Street. Maya's stomach dropped. Did he say what about? Something about a pending reassessment now that ownership is transferring. He seemed very interested in when you might be paying the lien. Maya, I didn't like the way he was asking questions. It felt wrong. Tell him I'm not available. Don't tell him anything else. Already did. But sweetheart, you need to be careful. If people know you're about to inherit property in San Francisco, all kinds of vultures are going to come circling. Maya thanked her and hung up, her mind racing. She'd been so focused on the certificates, on the immediate treasure, that she hadn't thought about the factory itself. What was it worth? The land alone in Chinatown had to be valuable, even with the building in disrepair. She pulled out her phone and searched for property values on Stockton Street. The results made her breath catch. Commercial properties in that neighborhood, even small ones, were selling for millions. The building might be a wreck, but the land beneath it was worth. She couldn't even process the number. Between the certificates and the property value, she was looking at wealth she'd never imagined having. The kind of wealth that changed not just her life, but Lily's future, generations of futures. The kind of wealth that people would try to take from her if they knew about it. Maya walked back to her car, her decision crystallizing. She would sell the certificates to Robert for the immediate payment. $175,000 was more than enough to pay the lien, set aside money for repairs and legal fees, and still have a cushion for emergencies. The factory itself, she would keep it. Fix it up, maybe rent out the commercial space, maybe do something else entirely. But she wouldn't sell it, wouldn't give up the one piece of solid real estate her family had ever owned. Chen had held on to this building through everything. Maya would honor that stubbornness. Tuesday morning, Maya returned to Robert Chen's shop with her decision made and all 3 boxes of certificates loaded in the Honda's trunk. She'd barely slept, her mind running through scenarios and possibilities until exhaustion finally claimed her around 4 a.m. Robert was waiting, his shop not yet open to the public. He'd cleared his main workspace and set up equipment for a thorough examination. Lights, magnifying devices, reference materials stacked within reach. You've decided? I want to sell the collection to you outright. All 347 certificates for $175,000. Something flickered in Robert's expression. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction. That's a wise choice for someone who needs liquidity. Let me verify the full collection first. Make sure everything is consistent with what you showed me yesterday. The authentication took 6 hours. Robert examined every certificate, making notes, cross-referencing with his catalogs, occasionally photographing specific examples. Maya sat in a chair by the window, watching Chinatown move through its Tuesday rhythms, trying not to think about what she was giving up by choosing immediate money over patient wealth. Around 2 p.m., Robert looked up from his work. Everything checks out. These are genuine, well-preserved, and exactly what you represented. I'm prepared to honor my offer, $175,000 for the collection. He pulled out paperwork already prepared, documents that outlined the terms of sale, transferred ownership, released Robert from any future claims. Maya read through them carefully, her hands trembling slightly. I need a few days to consult with a lawyer, she said, surprising herself at the words even as they came out. Make sure I understand what I'm signing. Robert's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course, though I should mention the offer is time-sensitive. I have clients who are interested, but they won't wait indefinitely. I can hold the offer until Friday, but after that, I'll need to reconsider the terms. The pressure was subtle but unmistakable. Maya felt it like a hand on her back, pushing her toward a decision she wasn't quite ready to make. Friday works. I'll have an answer by then. She left the certificates with Robert. He'd already examined them, already verified them, and his vault was certainly safer than Mrs. Rodriguez's storage unit, and walked out into afternoon sunlight that felt too bright after the shop's dim interior. Mrs. Rodriguez had given her the name of a lawyer, a woman named Diana Ortiz, who did pro bono work for the immigrant community and had helped Mrs. Rodriguez with her citizenship paperwork years ago. Maya called from her car, expecting to leave a voicemail, but Diana answered on the second ring. Ortiz Legal Services. Maya explained her situation in broad strokes. Inherited property, valuable documents, a dealer offering to buy them. Diana listened without interrupting, then asked pointed questions about Robert's offer, about the authentication process, about what else Maya had found. Don't sign anything until we meet, Diana said finally. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? 9 a.m. I have to work at. Maya, if what you're telling me is accurate, you're potentially dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe more. Take the day off. This is more important than one shift at a laundromat. Diana's office was in a converted house in Oakland's Fruitvale district, the kind of place that served the neighborhood rather than courted corporate clients. The waiting room held mismatched chairs and magazines in 3 languages. The receptionist was a college student who looked like she was studying between client appointments. Diana herself was in her 40s, wearing professional clothes that had seen better days, carrying the particular exhaustion of lawyers who did good work for people who couldn't pay much. She gestured Maya into an office lined with file boxes and stacked with papers that suggested organized chaos rather than actual disorder. Tell me everything, Diana said, pulling out a legal pad. Start from the letter you received and don't leave anything out. Maya talked for an hour, describing the factory, the certificates, the gold coins she hadn't mentioned to Robert yet, the cash hidden in the desk, the notebook with fortunes, everything. Diana took notes, asked clarifying questions, and occasionally looked up with expressions that suggested she was recalculating Maya's situation with each new detail. When Maya finished, Diana sat back in her chair. Okay, first, the good news. Everything you've described appears to be legally yours. Your grandmother left the property to you. The certificates were found on property you own, and assuming the probate was handled correctly, there's no question about inheritance rights. And the bad news? The bad news is that you're about to make several very expensive mistakes if you don't slow down and think strategically. Diana pulled out her laptop and started typing, pulling up information as she talked. Robert Chen's offer of $175,000 for certificates worth potentially $300,000 retail isn't necessarily unfair. That's within the normal range for bulk liquidation. But you haven't explored other options. There are auction houses, other dealers, private collectors who might offer more. You're accepting the first offer because you're scared and desperate, which is how people lose money. Maya felt her defenses rise. I need to pay the lien. I have 40 days left before. The lien is $4,200. You found $8,000 in cash. You could pay the lien tomorrow and still have money left over. Why are you rushing to sell everything? The question stopped Maya cold. Why was she rushing? The answer came slowly, reluctantly. Because I'm afraid if I wait, something will go wrong. Someone will challenge the inheritance, or I'll find out the certificates aren't really mine, or the county will change the rules, or you'll wake up and this will all have been a dream, Diana finished gently. Maya, understand. When you spend your whole life with nothing, sudden wealth feels impossible to trust. But you need to slow down and do this right. She turned her laptop so Maya could see the screen. I've been researching while you talked. There's an auction house in New York, Heritage Auctions, that specializes in historical Asian documents. They've sold Republic of China bonds for significantly more than Robert's estimates. Some rare certificates have gone for $5,000 to $10,000 each. Maya stared at the screen, at photographs of certificates that looked almost identical to the ones in her collection. Now, yours probably aren't all rare, Diana continued. But even if most are common and only a few are valuable, you could potentially double what Robert's offering. Maybe more, but it would take time, 6 months to a year, to properly auction them. I can't wait that long. You don't have to. Here's what I recommend. Pay the lien immediately with the cash you found. That secures the property. Then sell some of the certificates to Robert, maybe a third of the collection, enough to give you operating capital and breathing room. Keep the rest and auction them properly. That way you get immediate money plus long-term value. The suggestion was so sensible Maya felt foolish for not thinking of it herself. What about the property? The assessor's office sent someone asking about it. Diana's expression darkened. That's the part that worries me most. Commercial property in Chinatown, even a small lot, is worth serious money. If the county is already sniffing around, they're probably hoping you can't pay the lien so they can seize it and auction it to developers. Once you pay the lien and take ownership, you need to get it appraised, understand what you actually have. And then what? That depends on what you want. You could sell it and take the money, probably $800,000 to $1.2 million for a lot that size in that location. Or you could renovate it, rent it out, generate income. Or you could do something else entirely. But you need to understand your options before you decide. Maya's head was spinning. $800,000 to $1.2 million for the property alone, plus potentially $300,000 or more from the certificates, plus the gold coins, which Diana pointed out could be worth another $50,000 if sold properly. She was looking at over $1 million in total assets. Maybe closer to $1.5 million if everything went well. The number was so large it felt abstract, disconnected from reality. People like her didn't have million-dollar inheritances. People like her struggled to pay rent and borrowed from neighbors and made decisions based on which bill could wait another week. I can't process this, Maya said quietly. It's too much. Then we'll take it one step at a time. Today, we draft a counterproposal to Robert. You'll sell him 100 certificates for $60,000, paid immediately. They give you cash to work with. Tomorrow, we pay the lien and secure the property. Next week, we get the building appraised and make a plan. Does that feel manageable? Yes, that feels manageable. Diana spent the next 2 hours drafting documents, explaining each clause, making sure Maya understood what she was signing and what she was keeping. By the time Maya left the office, she had a clear plan and a lawyer who'd agreed to work on contingency. She'd pay Diana 5% of whatever she eventually sold, but nothing up front. One more thing, Diana said as Maya was leaving. Your grandmother was smart to hide this wealth. Once word gets out that you own valuable property in San Francisco, people are going to come out of the woodwork. Relatives you've never met claiming they deserve a share, investment advisors wanting to manage your money, developers offering to buy the property. Be very, very careful who you trust. Maya called Robert from her car and explained the counter-proposal. There was a long pause. You've consulted with an attorney. Yes. Another pause, longer this time. I understand. The offer is reasonable. I can do $60,000 for 100 certificates selected from the collection to ensure a representative sample. When would you want to complete the transaction? Tomorrow, if possible. Tomorrow works. Bring your attorney if you'd like. We'll finalize the paperwork, and I'll have a cashier's check ready. The transaction took place Wednesday afternoon in Robert's shop. Diana present to review every document before Maya signed. Robert was professional, almost friendly, but Maya could sense his disappointment at not getting the full collection. Still, $60,000 was substantial, and he seemed genuinely pleased with the certificates he'd selected. Maya left with a check that felt surreal in her pocket and 2 boxes of certificates remaining in her possession. Diana drove her directly to a bank where they opened a new account and a safety deposit box, depositing the check and storing the remaining certificates somewhere more secure than Mrs. Rodriguez's basement. Thursday morning, Maya took Lily with her to San Francisco. This felt important. Her daughter needed to see this, needed to understand that their lives were changing. They met Jessica Park at the county clerk's office, where Maya presented a cashier's check for $4,267.50, the lien plus accumulated interest. Jessica processed the payment with professional efficiency, producing documents that transferred ownership officially and completely. Congratulations, Ms. Chen. You now own 4247 Stockton Street free and clear. Maya held the deed, her hands shaking slightly. This piece of paper represented security, stability, a foundation her family had never had before. Beside her, Lily bounced with barely contained excitement. We own it? The whole building. The whole building, baby. Can we go see it again? They drove to Chinatown, parking in the same spot Maya had used on her first visit. The neighborhood looked different knowing she belonged here now, that this narrow building squeezed between its neighbors was hers to keep or change or build upon. She unlocked the factory and let Lily explore, watching her daughter run through rooms with the freedom of ownership, imagining out loud what could be done with the space. We could make cookies here like great-grandma did. Maybe we could. Or we could make it a museum about her, so people know what she did. That's a beautiful idea. Or we could live here. Mama, could we live here? Maya looked around the dusty main floor, at the equipment that would need to be replaced or removed, at the water-damaged ceiling and the electrical system that probably violated a dozen modern codes. The renovation cost would be enormous, easily $200,000 or more to make the building safe and functional. But yes, they could live here. If she wanted to, if she was willing to invest the time and money, they could convert the upper floors into a home and use the commercial space for something that generated income. We could, Maya said slowly. We'd have to fix a lot of things first, but yes, we could. While Lily explored, Maya climbed to Chen Wei's apartment on the 3rd floor. She sat on the floor where she'd found the letter, pulling it out of her pocket to read again. You come from people who build things, who survive, who refuse to disappear. Maya had spent so long feeling like she was barely surviving, like she was one emergency away from complete disaster. But Chen Wei had survived worse and built something that endured. And now Maya had the resources to do more than just survive. She could build something too. Her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize, San Francisco area code. Ms. Chen, this is Marcus Brennan. I'm a property developer here in the city. I heard you recently acquired the building at 4247 Stockton, and I wanted to discuss a potential purchase. Maya's stomach tightened. Diana had warned her about this. I'm not interested in selling. I understand, but you haven't heard my offer yet. I'm prepared to pay $950,000 for the property as is. You wouldn't have to do any repairs, deal with any inspections, nothing. Just sign the papers and walk away with nearly $1 million. The number should have been tempting. It was more money than Maya had ever imagined having in one lump sum. But something in Brennan's tone, the smoothness of his pitch, the way he'd found her number so quickly after she'd taken ownership, it all felt wrong. How did you get my number? I have contacts at the county clerk's office. Nothing sinister, just professional networking. Ms. Chun, I know this must be overwhelming. Suddenly owning property you didn't expect, dealing with the responsibility of a building that needs extensive work. I'm offering you an easy way out. I said I'm not interested. Think about your daughter. That money could pay for her education, set her up for life. Don't let pride or sentiment make you miss this opportunity. The mention of Lily made anger flare in Maya's chest. Don't presume to tell me what's best for my daughter. The answer is no. She hung up before he could respond, her heart pounding. 2 more calls came in the next hour, different developers, similar pitches, offers ranging from $875,000 to $1.1 million. Maya stopped answering after the second one. Diana had been right. The vultures were circling. That evening, back in Oakland, Maya sat with Lily and tried to explain what was happening in terms an 8-year-old could understand. We inherited great-grandma's building, which is worth a lot of money. Some people want to buy from us, but I'm not sure we should sell. Why would we sell if great-grandma wanted us to have it? The question, asked with a child's perfect logic, cut through all of Maya's anxieties about money and security and doing the right thing. You're absolutely right, baby. She wanted us to have it, which means she wanted us to decide what to do with it, not let someone else decide for us. So what are we going to do? Maya pulled out her phone and showed Lily the photographs she'd taken of the factory. Together, they looked at each room, talking about possibilities. The main floor could be a bakery, Maya suggested, or a restaurant, or maybe artist studios we rent out, or a cookie factory. We could make great-grandma's fortune cookies. That would be special. We'd have to learn how she made them. We have her recipes. You show me the notebook. Maya had forgotten about that. The notebook with fortunes, with Chun Wei's wisdom written in her own hand. They could replicate the cookies using modern equipment, but include the handwritten messages that had made them special. The idea took root, growing more detailed as Maya thought about it. Not a full factory. She didn't have Chun Wei's expertise or the desire to work at that scale, but a small batch operation. Artisanal fortune cookies with meaningful messages, sold to restaurants and specialty shops, and people who wanted something more personal than mass-produced alternatives. She could hire local people, maybe other single mothers who needed flexible work. She could use the second floor for production and convert the third floor into a small apartment where she and Lily could live. The rent savings alone would be significant, and the income from cookie sales could supplement what remained from selling the certificates. It wouldn't be easy. There would be permits and inspections and health department regulations and 1,000 other obstacles. But it was possible. More than possible, it was the kind of thing Chun Wei would approve of. Building something meaningful, creating value, refusing to disappear. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya threw herself into planning. She hired an architect to assess the building and draw up renovation plans. She met with the city's small business development office to understand the permitting process. She researched commercial kitchen equipment and food safety certification and business insurance. Diana helped with the legal aspects, forming an LLC, trademarking the name Golden Fortune Cookies before anyone else could claim it, negotiating with contractors for renovation estimates. The numbers were daunting. Renovation costs came to $285,000 for everything: structural repairs, new electrical and plumbing, commercial kitchen installation, apartment conversion on the third floor. Equipment would cost another $45,000. permits, insurance, initial inventory, and operating capital for the first year added $35,000 more. Total startup cost, $365,000. Maya had $60,000 cash from selling the first batch of certificates. The remaining certificates, properly auctioned, could bring another $200,000 to $250,000, but that would take time. The gold coins could provide another $40,000 to $50,000. She was roughly $50,000 to $75,000 short, even if everything sold at the high end of estimates. Diana suggested a small business loan, using the building as collateral. Banks were willing to lend against the property value, especially for a business plan as detailed as what Maya had developed. Within a week, Maya had a loan offer, $100,000 at reasonable interest, enough to cover the shortfall and provide cushion for unexpected expenses. The moment of signing felt monumental. Maya sat in the bank's conference room, pen in hand, looking at documents that would put her in debt but also make her a business owner, a property owner, someone building something instead of just surviving. My grandmother would have done this, Maya said aloud, not caring that the banker looked confused. She would have taken a risk and built something. She signed. Construction began in early March. Maya quit her job at the laundromat. Denise was surprised, but understanding, and threw herself into managing the renovation. She was at the building every day, making decisions about tile colors and cabinet configurations and 1,000 small details that transformed plans into reality. Lily came after school most days, doing homework at a makeshift desk in the corner while contractors worked around her. Mrs. Rodriguez visited often, bringing food and encouragement and occasionally reminding Maya to rest. "You're going to burn yourself out," she warned. "You can't work 20-hour days indefinitely." "I'm not working. I'm building." It looks the same from the outside, but it didn't feel the same. Working at the laundromat had been exhausting because it was repetitive and meaningless and led nowhere. This work, choosing tile, approving electrical plans, discussing ventilation systems, was exhausting because it mattered. Every decision shaped what the building would become, what her future and Lily's future would look like. The contractors found more problems as they dug deeper into the building structure. Water damage worse than the initial inspection had revealed. Electrical wiring that needed complete replacement. A support beam that had deteriorated and needed reinforcing. Each discovery added cost and time. Maya's carefully planned budget stretched and threatened to break. She sold the gold coins ahead of schedule to cover overruns, getting $47,000 from a reputable dealer Diana recommended. By June, the renovation was 75% complete, but the money was running out. Maya had to make hard choices, delay the apartment conversion, and live in Oakland a while longer, scale back some of the commercial kitchen equipment, do some of the finished work herself rather than hiring it out. She spent weekends painting walls and installing shelving, learning skills she'd never needed before. Lily helped where she could, her 8-year-old hands carefully painting baseboards under Maya's supervision. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" Lily asked one Saturday afternoon, both of them covered in paint, exhausted but satisfied with their progress. Maya looked around the main floor, seeing it transform from abandoned factory to functioning commercial space. The old equipment was gone, replaced by modern ovens and mixers. The walls were painted a warm cream color. The floors were clean and level. It was starting to look like a place where something good could happen. "Yeah, baby, we're going to be better than okay. Because of great-grandma, and because we're not giving up." The remaining certificates went to auction in July through Heritage Auctions, exactly as Diana had recommended. Maya attended the auction online, watching the lots sell one by one, her heart racing with each bid. Some went for the expected amounts, $500 to $1,000 for common certificates. But several rare pieces, ones Robert had identified in his initial examination, sold for dramatically more. A 1937 bond in pristine condition went for $8,200. A complete set from 1942 sold for $15,000 to a collector in Taiwan. When a final gavel fell, Maya's collection had brought $247,000, nearly $90,000 more than Robert's original estimate for the full collection. After the auction house took their commission, Maya netted $222,000, more than enough to finish the renovation, stock the kitchen, and still have operating capital for the first year. In September, Golden Fortune Cookies officially opened. The grand opening was modest. A few neighbors, some local press, Mrs. Rodriguez with her camera, taking pictures like a proud grandmother. Maya had hired 2 employees, both single mothers from the neighborhood who needed flexible hours. The first batch of cookies came out of the oven at 7 a.m., filling the building with a scent that was pure nostalgia, pure hope, pure possibility. Lily, now 9 years old and taking her role as company mascot seriously, helped package them with ribbons that Maya had ordered special. Each package included a card explaining the history, how Chen had started the original factory, how she made each fortune meaningful, how 3 generations of women had worked to preserve this tradition. The first order came from a restaurant owner who'd actually bought cookies from Chen years ago and was thrilled to learn the factory was operating again. The second came from a corporate client wanting custom fortunes for an event. The third was a wedding planner who loved the idea of personalized fortune cookies for reception favors. By December, Golden Fortune Cookies was profitable, not wildly successful, not making Maya rich, but covering its costs and providing income for 3 families, including her own. The apartment on the 3rd floor was finally finished, and Maya and Lily moved in just before Christmas. Standing in the space where Chen had lived, Maya felt her grandmother's presence like a benediction. She'd kept the letter, framed it, hung it on the wall where she'd see it every day. You come from people who build things, who survive, who refuse to disappear. On Christmas Eve, Maya sat with Lily in their new home, their owned home, their permanent home, and wrote their own fortunes to include in the next batch of cookies. Maya wrote, "What seems like an ending is often just an intermission." Lily wrote, in her 9-year-old handwriting, "Great-grandmas leave treasures, but we have to be brave enough to find them." New Year's Day brought a surprise visitor. Linda, Maya's mother, appeared at the factory door with a tentative expression and a suitcase. "I heard what you did," Linda said. "What you built. Can I see it?" Maya showed her everything: the commercial kitchen, the packaging area, the small office where orders were processed, the apartment upstairs. Linda walked through it all in silence, occasionally touching a wall or pausing at a photograph of Chen that Maya had enlarged and framed. Finally, in the apartment's small living room, Linda sat down heavily. "I was wrong about her. About all of it. I thought she was stubborn and difficult and chose this place over her family. But she wasn't choosing the building. She was choosing survival. She was protecting something for you. She left me more than money, Mom. She left me proof that we're not small people living small lives, that we can build things that matter." Linda wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry I told you to walk away. I'm sorry I couldn't see what she was trying to give you. You can see it now. That's what matters." They talked for hours, unraveling years of misunderstanding and resentment, finding common ground in Chen Wei's stubborn refusal to give up. Linda stayed for a week, meeting Lily properly for the first time in years, helping in the kitchen, slowly rebuilding bridges she'd burned long ago. Before she left, she pulled Maya aside. "Your grandmother used to say something in Cantonese. I never understood it because my Chinese was terrible and I didn't care enough to learn. But I remember the words. She'd say it when things were hard, when customers complained or money was tight, or I was being particularly difficult. What did she say? Gam yat gay ho. I looked it up recently. It means today is very good. Not tomorrow, not yesterday. Today. Right now, wherever you are, however hard it is, today is very good because you're still here, still building, still refusing to disappear." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Gam yat gay ho. Yeah, today is very good." 5 years later, Maya stood in a commercial kitchen 4 times the size of the original factory. Golden Fortune Cookies had expanded, moved to a larger facility in Oakland, but kept the Stockton Street building as their flagship location and company headquarters. The business employed 23 people, sold to restaurants across California, and had recently secured a contract with a national grocery chain. Maya had been profiled in business magazines, interviewed about sustainable growth and ethical employment practices, invited to speak at conferences about women in food service. But the best moments were still the quiet ones. Saturday mornings at the Stockton Street location, where Maya taught cookie-making classes to neighborhood kids. Evenings when Lily, now 14, helped develop new fortune messages that captured Chen Wei's wisdom and language that resonated with contemporary audiences. And every year on the anniversary of Chen Wei's death, Maya closed the business for the day and spent it at her grandmother's grave, placing fresh flowers and reading aloud the letters she'd found, making sure Chen Wei knew that her refusal to disappear had echoed forward through generations. The property developers still called occasionally, their offers climbing as Chinatown property values soared. The building was now worth over $2 million, maybe more. Maya could sell it, retire young, live comfortably for the rest of her life. But she never seriously considered it. This wasn't just a building or a business or even an inheritance. It was proof that women like Chen Wei, women like Maya, women like Lily would someday become. They could build things that lasted. They could survive systems designed to grind them down. They could transform $800 in auction fees into a legacy that fed families and employed neighbors and demonstrated that the most valuable inheritances weren't measured in dollars. On the wall of the Stockton Street building, Maya had installed a plaque. It held Chen Wei's photograph from 1989, standing in front of the factory, unsmiling but present, and the words Maya had found in her grandmother's letter. Chen Wei built this factory in 1989 and operated it until 2012. She came to America with nothing and created something that endured. Her granddaughter Maya, Chen, reopened Golden Fortune Cookies in 2024, honoring the legacy of a woman who refused to disappear. Below that, in smaller letters, one of Chen Wei's fortunes. You are worth more than you believe. The world will try to convince you otherwise. Do not listen. Build something good. Make them remember. Maya stood before the plaque every morning before opening, touching her grandmother's photograph, drawing strength from a woman she'd barely known but understood completely. Chen Wei had hidden treasure throughout the building. Certificates worth hundreds of thousands, gold coins, cash, the notebooks full of wisdom. But the real treasure was simpler and more profound. The knowledge that survival was possible, that building mattered more than owning, that stubborn refusal to accept defeat could be inherited just as reliably as money or property. Lily appeared beside her, 14 years old and confident in ways that still amazed Maya. Ready for today? Ready. What's on the schedule? Morning production run, then the interview with that food blogger, then I'm teaching the afternoon class while you meet with the grocery chain people about expanding distribution. Maya smiled. When did you become my assistant manager? When you admitted you needed one. Come on, the dough's ready. They walked into the kitchen together, mother and daughter, granddaughter and great-granddaughter, two more women refusing to disappear, building something good, making them remember. The ovens warmed. The cookies baked. The fortunes waited to be written, each one carrying forward Chen Wei's stubborn insistence that today was very good, that survival was triumph, that ordinary women could do extraordinary things if they refused to believe the world's lies about their worth. Maya picked up a pen and began writing the day's messages, her handwriting echoing her grandmother's precision. What you inherit matters less than what you build with it. Your ancestors' struggles were not in vain. They bought you the freedom to try. The treasure you seek is often hidden in places everyone else abandoned. One by one, the fortunes took shape, wisdom disguised as cookies, hope packaged in ribbons. Chen Wei's legacy transformed into something new while remaining fundamentally true to what it had always been. A refusal to disappear, a commitment to survival, a blueprint for building good things in a world that often made building difficult. The factory hummed with life and purpose. The neighborhood moved outside the windows. Somewhere, in some form beyond knowing, Maya hoped Chen Wei was watching, seeing what her stubbornness had protected, what her refusal to give up had made possible. Gamyat Geho, Maya whispered to the morning light. Today is very good. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.